All right, well, it is 5 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, MPN Research Advocates. We are really thrilled to have you here for session 3. Thank you for being here and for your interest in helping shape MPN research. For our new participants, I want to say also how happy we are to have you join the MPN Pathways program. My name is Sarah Douglas, and I'm the Associate Director of Patient Engagement here at the MPN Research Foundation. For any new participants, I also want to say how happy we are to have you join this program. And I want each of you to also feel very comfortable with reaching out to us with any questions you have along the way. I can be reached at patientengagement@mpnrf.org. Just really let us know how we can help. And Christina, next slide, please. So as mentioned, this is the third session of the MPN Pathways series. To review any of the prior sessions or to access evaluations for certification, please visit the MPN Pathways landing page on our MPN Research Foundation website. And then also be on the lookout for future sessions and their registrations in your inbox. We do have a bonus webinar we are offering for our MPN Pathways participants on March 4th. This is titled, What's Your Why? So in this bonus session, participants will meet patient advocacy leaders from pharmaceutical companies that are developing and marketing treatments for MPNs. These leaders advocate for the patient voice within their respective organizations. And these industry patient advocates will share their insights, really their roles and responsibilities, the opportunities and challenges they face, success stories, and their personal motivations for pursuing a career in patient advocacy. Ned Weinshaker, a Patient Impact Council member and myelofibrosis patient, will help moderate this session. And then also know we are working on scheduling the 4th session of the MPN Pathways series, and we'll send you the registration information by email when it's confirmed. Christina, next slide, please. And we also want to take a moment to recognize and thank our MPN Pathways sponsors and our collaborators, the MPN Advocates Networks, for their support of this program. Next slide. And so a few housekeeping items. For tonight's presentation, we really encourage you to place any questions in the Q&A feature during the presentation. Our team will be answering questions as the speakers present. And then really, please only utilize the chat feature to communicate with one another. These questions can be missed by our panelists if they're not put in the Q&A feature. If there's time at the end, our speakers will answer any questions live, and we will take advantage of that. But any of those questions that were not addressed, we will be sure to follow up with those via email. And also as a reminder, we do apologize, but during this session, we are unable to answer any personal questions related to your direct care or treatment. We encourage all participants to email patientengagement@mpnrf.org so we can help navigate you to the right resources and education, so we can help you kind of come up with those questions to ask your provider or help you find an MPN specialist near you. Tonight's presentation is being recorded. This link will be also provided to the MPN Pathways group after the webinar. Next slide, please. The evaluation of this session will be sent to you in a post-event email. Please be sure to complete the evaluation for this session to earn credit towards your certification. Next slide, please. Okay, and before we begin our Clinical Trials 101 presentation, I want to share with you some statistics from our MPN Patient and Caregiver Unmet Needs Assessment. We did this towards the end of last year. We did have a wonderful response from a total of 676 who participated in the assessment. Next slide, please. Okay, so the majority of the respondents across all 3 MPN types reported that their healthcare providers did not discuss clinical trial options with them. This ranges from 71% for MPNs overall to 73% for ET patients. MF patients are the exception, with 41% indicating that their healthcare providers did discuss clinical trial options. But patients should really feel empowered to ask their healthcare teams about clinical trial opportunities and really explore resources such as clinicaltrials.gov or advocacy organizations for additional information. So we hope today's presentation really empowers you to have those conversations. Next slide, please. Okay, let me get to... And clinical trial participation is really critical for advancing research and improving treatment options for MPN patients. However, this data shows that there are low participation rates overall. The majority of respondents indicated they had not participated in an MPN clinical trial, with 91% of PV patients, 89% of ET patients, and 88% of MPN patients overall saying no. These findings really highlight some of the barriers to participation, such as lack of awareness, limited access, or misconceptions about clinical trials. So we hope today we also help you with some of those barriers during our presentation. Next slide, please. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers for the evening. We have Christina Prasad, who is our Senior Manager of Research Programs and Insights at the MPN Research Foundation. Christina brings 17 years of clinical research experience to her role, which really is fueling her passion for advancing MPN research and clinical trial awareness. She leads efforts to engage healthcare providers, patients, and community oncology sites, really fostering collaboration to drive meaningful progress in the field. And then we also have Andrea Spica, who is a member of our MPN Research Foundation Patient Impact Council. Andrea is an inspiration in the field of MPN, so she is drawing from her personal journey with ET and secondary myelofibrosis to make significant impact. As a bone marrow transplant recipient and clinical trial participant, she brings a unique perspective to her work, which includes contributing to MPN research. Andrea applies her lived experience and acquired knowledge to review clinical trial protocols, patient-facing materials, and MPN challenge proposals, ensuring that they are really aligned with the needs and the concerns of MPN patients. Her efforts help really advance patient-centered research and the care for individuals affected by MPNs. And with that, Christina, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So it's a pleasure to be here with you and spend some time with you all a little bit tonight. So as Sarah mentioned, my name is Christina. I am the Senior Manager of our Research Programs and Insights at the Foundation. I've always been passionate about clinical research because I believe it has the power to transform lives, not only by improving treatments, but also by giving patients hope and options when they need them the most. At MPNRF, we work to accelerate progress in the field of myeloproliferative neoplasms, MPNs, by funding groundbreaking research, driving collaboration, and empowering patients to make informed decisions about their care. So today, I'm excited to share information about clinical trials, what they are, how they work, and how they're helping to shape the future of MPN treatments. Whether you're exploring trial options for yourself or simply want to learn more, my goal is to make this information clear, approachable, and actionable so you feel informed and empowered moving forward. So let's get started. So today we'll start with a quick overview of MPNs, what they are and how they affect patients. We'll also highlight the critical role clinical trials play in driving new therapies and expanding treatment options for MPNs. We'll break down the phases of clinical trials, what happens in each step from early testing to approval. We'll also explain the eligibility criteria for participation, as well as the potential benefits and risks, to help you better understand the entire trial experience. Clinical trials are at the heart of progress in MPN treatment. We'll discuss how they help researchers test new therapies, improve symptom management, and provide hope for better outcomes. Navigating clinical trials can feel overwhelming, so we'll share some trusted resources, including clinicaltrials.gov, the MPN Research Foundation, and other tools to help you find trials and stay informed. Finally, we'll talk to you about some ways you can get involved, whether it's participating in trials, advocating for research funding, or supporting others in the MPN community. Your engagement helps drive progress and improve access to clinical research. So let's dive in. So in our first webinar back in September 2024, my colleague reviewed MPNs in depth. Although our focus is clinical trials today, I'd like to just refresh us all on what MPNs are. So what is an MPN? MPNs stand for myeloproliferative neoplasms, a group of chronic progressive blood cancers where the bone marrow often produces too many mature blood cells. Chronic, meaning they can persist for a long time or constantly recur. Progressive, meaning they can worsen. This overproduction involves one or more types of blood cells, typically red cells, white cells, or platelets, and can lead to a range of health complications, including clotting, bleeding issues, an enlarged spleen, and possibility of transformation to a different MPN or chronic cancer. So MPNs are a group of rare blood cancer with an unusual name. The name itself explains the condition. Myelo means bone marrow, where blood cells are made. Proliferative means rapid growth of these cells. Neoplasm means abnormal cell growth that can lead to disease. There are three main types of MPNs: essential thrombocythemia, ET, where there's an overproduction of platelets, which can lead to clotting or bleeding problems. Polycythemia vera, PV, which is an overproduction of red blood cells causing thickened blood and increasing the risk of blood clots and strokes. And myelofibrosis, MF, abnormal blood cell production leading to the formation of scar tissue in the bone marrow. So why does this matter? Well, understanding these conditions helps explain why clinical trials are so important. Trials give researchers the chance to study treatments, improve quality of life, and slow or even stop disease progression. Now that we've defined MPNs, we'll dive into how clinical trials are structured and how they're advancing treatment options for these conditions. So clinical trials play a critical role in advancing treatment and care for MPNs. First, they drive innovation by testing new therapies and improving treatment options. Many trials focus on finding safer, more effective treatments to address symptoms and slow disease progression. Second, they expand knowledge about MPNs by studying these diseases develop, identifying biomarkers, and understanding treatment responses. This research helps refine therapies and guide future studies. And finally, clinical trials enhance patient care by offering participants access to cutting-edge treatments, expert monitoring, and new approaches that may not yet be widely available. Now we'll take a closer look at what clinical trials are and what it's like to participate in one. So what are clinical trials? Well, they are research studies designed to test new treatments, devices, or approaches to care. Their main goals are to evaluate safety, effectiveness, and impact on patients. According to the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, these studies are essential to advancing medicine and improving outcomes. So who leads clinical trials? Clinical trials are funded and managed by pharmaceutical companies, government agencies like the NIH, academic institutions, and nonprofit organizations. Oversight is provided by regulatory authorities such as the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, known as the FDA, or equivalent agencies in other countries to ensure participant safety. Studies are carried out by physicians, research teams, and other healthcare professionals. So what do clinical trials do? They test new therapies, they compare new treatments, and explore combinations to improve care. They're also designed to collect data that can lead to FDA approvals or changes in medical guidelines. What do they not do? Trials don't guarantee personal benefit and aren't meant to replace standard treatments. Instead, they're focusing on research and advancing science. So what is it like to participate? Well, participation starts with eligibility screening to make sure the study is the right fit based on diagnosis, health status, and other factors. Once eligible, participants would review an informed consent form that explains the risk, benefits, and expectations. This step ensures participants fully understand what they're signing up for. During a trial, participants receive very close monitoring with frequent check-ins, tests, and lab work. It can require time, travel, and follow-up visits, but it also provides access to innovative therapies and expert care. You can learn more about available trials at clinicaltrials.gov, which is a government database of studies currently recruiting participants. We'll review this a little bit later on our discussion. So overall, clinical trials play a vital role in improving treatments and advancing medicine. The process for development and approval of a new drug is lengthy. However, each step is extremely important. Regulatory authorities such as the FDA or equivalent agencies worldwide have established a comprehensive multi-step drug development and approval process to ensure new therapies are safe and effective. In the United States, the FDA has established a 5-step drug development and approval process. So step 1 is discovery and development, which focuses on studying diseases, identifying potential treatments, and testing how they interact with the human body in lab settings. Step 2 is preclinical research, and this involves testing promising therapies in labs and animals to assess safety and determine dosage. Before any human testing begins, developers must submit an application to the FDA for approval. Step 3 is clinical research, and that's where treatments are tested in humans across multiple phases to evaluate safety, dosage, and effectiveness. The FDA monitors data throughout the process to ensure standards are met. Step 4 is the FDA review, and that begins once all clinical trial data is submitted through an application. The FDA carefully evaluates the results and may consult advisory committees before deciding whether to approve the treatment. And the last step is post-marketing monitoring, which ensures that safety continues to be tracked even after a drug is approved. The FDA monitors reports from patients and healthcare providers and can require label changes or recalls if new risks are identified. So this rigorous process is essential for advancing medical progress and bringing new life-changing therapies to patients. On the remaining slides, we will focus in on just one of these steps where treatments are available to you all, which is the clinical research step. So in the previous slide, the third step, again, is the entire drug development process is clinical trials. And that's the step that you're most familiar with hearing about. Clinical trials is research designed to evaluate the effectiveness of new medical interventions, including treatment. Clinical trials progress through 4 key phases to ensure safety and effectiveness. So the top row shows the phases and defines what happens in each phase. And the 2 banners on the bottom progress. So as the phase goes on, the trial length will lengthen from several months to several years. And same goes for the number of participants they're looking for in these phases. As the phases go on, there'll be an increase in the number of patients that would be in that pool. So in phase 1, this is where they focus on safety, testing new treatments in small groups, typically 20 to 100, over several months to identify side effects and safe dosage ranges. Phase 2 is where they're evaluating whether the treatment works and refining the dosing based on findings from a larger group, somewhere typically between 100 and 300, over several months. Phase 3 expands testing to much larger populations, anywhere from 300 to 3,000 patients over several years, comparing the new therapy to standard treatments and gathering data required for FDA approval. Of note, health authorities in most developing countries follow a similar process for approval in their respective countries. So once approved, phase 4 continues monitoring the treatment in the real world, identifying long-term effects and ensuring ongoing safety. So this process helps bring safe and effective treatments to patients while advancing medical progress. So let's talk a little about endpoints. These are the specific goals that researchers are measuring during each phase of clinical trials to evaluate whether a treatment works. Primary endpoints are the main focus of a trial. They measure the most important outcome researchers want to achieve, something meaningful to both patients and physicians. So, for example, in ET trials, researchers often track composite hematologic scores, which look at how well blood counts are controlled. In PV trials, they might also track hematologic scores, but include reduction in phlebotomies, which is important for managing excess red blood cells. And in MF trials, endpoints often focus on reducing symptoms, shrinking spleen size, improving transfusion dependence, and even overall survival. Secondary endpoints are additional goals researchers are studying to gather more information about the treatment. So while not the primary focus, they do help show other effects the drug might have, such as laboratory markers showing biological changes, disease progression rates to see if the condition worsens more slowly, side effects or adverse events to assess safety. It's important to know that endpoints can vary depending on whether the trial is for ET, PV, or MF. Knowing what's being measured can help you better understand trial results and what outcomes might matter most. So eligibility criteria. This is a critical part of the clinical trial process. These are designed to ensure the safety of participants and the reliability of the results. There are inclusion criteria, which define who can join a trial based on key factors like age, specific diagnosis, and disease stage. On the other hand, exclusion criteria identifies who is not able to join, often due to other health conditions, prior treatments, or risks that might affect the study. These guidelines aren't meant to limit access, but to make sure participants are the right fit for the study and to protect their health through the process. Matching the right participants to the right trial helps produce meaningful, accurate results that can lead to better treatments. Additionally, it's important to note that just because someone does not qualify for a specific trial, or if a clinical trial treatment does not work, it doesn't mean you won't qualify for another study in the future. Many trials include something called a washout period, which is a set time frame to ensure prior treatments don't interfere with the new investigational treatment. This allows for future participation in other trials that might be a better fit. So specific criteria can vary depending on the nature of the trial, the treatment being studied, and the goals of the study protocol. Individuals interested in participating in MPN clinical trial should consult with your healthcare provider or contact the trial coordinator to have a full detailed eligibility criteria for that specific trial. Finding a clinical trial can feel overwhelming, but there are simple steps to get started. First, you can search clinicaltrials.gov, which is a public database of all registered clinical trials. It allows you to filter by condition, location, and phase. In the video on the next slide, we'll walk through how to search effectively using keywords and filters. Second, you can contact MPNRF directly for resources and support. We can help connect you with trial options and provide additional guidance if you need assistance navigating the process. Additionally, we collaborate with trusted partners like the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, LLS, where specialized nurses can provide personalized clinical trial navigation to help identify trials tailored to your specific needs. And lastly, talk to your healthcare team. Your doctor or specialist can recommend trials that match your diagnosis and current treatment plan. So in the next slide, we'll take a quick look at the video to see how to search clinical trials in action. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
In this quick tutorial, I'll show you how to navigate clinicaltrials.gov. We'll start at the search bar and type in clinicaltrials.gov. And so this is the homepage for clinicaltrials.gov. This is the search bar with some of the main filters in this section. There are other filters further down here, but I would recommend focusing on the specific condition you're looking for and the study status. So let's say, for example, we do essential thrombocythemia, and we would like to see recruiting and not yet recruiting studies. That way, this will focus on trials that you can actually look into and that are recruiting or soon to be recruiting. All studies will list even studies that are close to accrual. So we're really more interested in recruiting and not yet recruiting. So we'll click search here. This opens up to the list of all ET trials. It looks like the search has found 49 studies. There's two different views. There's a card view, which is more of a list view, and a table view. For my preference, I like the table view because I can see everything simply on a table format very quickly. If you, let's say, open on a trial here, it'll give you further details on this trial. I would focus on 3 sections when you look up a trial details: the eligibility criteria, the locations, and contact information. There's other information here, the NCT number, which is a unique identifier for clinicaltrials.gov for this trial, the sponsor. It gives you an overview of the study, some of the start-stop dates of when this is going to be recruiting and open for patients, the phase, this treatment that this is the study is studying. So if you go further down, the contact information is important, so that way you can find out how to get in touch with one of the sites and who's leading some of the studies. And this study in particular is open at 78 locations in the US and many other countries. If you scroll further down, you'll see that there's eligibility criteria here. This will tell you who is eligible to join the trial, including the inclusion criteria, exclusion, and for much more detailed criteria, I would recommend speaking to your healthcare team about the trial in detail. And the other thing I would recommend also is, if you are having a conversation and there are several other trials that you would like to discuss, what you can do is download this here as an Excel. And you can pick, before you even click that button, you can pick select trials. Or you can go into the specific trial and, for example, just the trial we looked at, and copy and paste this into an email, or save it somewhere where you can reference it later. And same thing you would do for any of these trials here. You can copy and paste this table into a Word document, whichever is easier for you to reference to have that conversation with your healthcare team. This website's been revamped, and I think what I want to say is it's a lot easier to search. So I hope this quick tutorial was helpful.
Thanks, Sarah. And I will continue sharing. Okay, do you see my slides?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So, one thing I wanted to mention about the video from the video is that you can also save the NCT number, which is a unique number for each clinical trial, which might be easier to save, that you can jot down in your phone or write down as well. So I hope that video was helpful. So in this slide here, we are going to highlight some of the current standard treatments available for today, that are available today for MPNs. and also some of the emerging options and trials that you would see on clinicaltrials.gov. So first, for current standard treatments, JAK inhibitors are the cornerstone of treatment, with ruxolitinib being widely used for MF and PV. Fedratinib and pacritinib are also options for MF as well, especially in cases where platelet counts are low. And most recently, momelotinib was approved to treat MF with anemia, addressing both symptoms and transfusion dependence. In addition to JAK inhibitors, rogue PEG interferon alpha 2b, or BESREMI, has been approved for PV. BESREMI offers a unique option as an interferon-based therapy, providing long-term control of blood counts and disease progression. So moving to emerging options in clinical trials, combination therapies like ruxolitinib with pelabresib, navtemadlin, and selinexor are being explored to enhance outcomes for patients with myelofibrosis. These combinations aim to address gaps in treatment efficacy by targeting additional pathways, offering the potential for better symptom control and disease modification compared to ruxolitinib alone. For novel approaches, drugs like bomedemstat target new pathways such as LSD1 inhibition for conditions like ET. Imetelstat is a telomerase inhibitor being tested for MF, and luspatercept is under investigation to treat anemia associated with MF and PV. These therapies could expand treatment options and provide more personalized care in the future. Of note, this is not a comprehensive list, but does show many examples of the current emerging treatments. So let's take a little bit more detailed look at novel agents. These are new treatments in development that work differently from current therapies. These therapies target specific pathways involved in MPNs, offering new options for patients who need better control of their disease. So, for example, mavorixativ, a PIM kinase inhibitor, is being studied for MF. It works by targeting abnormal cell survival and tissue scarring, two key contributors to disease progression. Bomedemstat is being studied for ET to slow abnormal cell growth, while imetelstat targets cell replication in MF. Divesiran is a therapy designed to help manage iron levels in PV, reducing the need for frequent blood draws. And rusfertide also focuses on iron regulation in PV to limit the need for phlebotomies. These novel agents are exciting because they provide new hope for patients by addressing treatment resistance, reducing symptoms, and potentially altering disease progression. After reviewing treatment options, it's important also to highlight the benefits and the risks of participating in trials. It's important to remember that clinical trials aren't just for those who have exhausted other options. They can be a proactive part of your treatment plan, providing early access to new and innovative therapies. Benefits also include early access to innovative therapies that may improve symptoms or outcomes, especially for diseases like MPNs, where options can be limited. Participants also receive expert care and monitoring throughout the trial, which can provide peace of mind. And finally, joining a trial contributes to advancing research, potentially helping future patients. There are risks to consider. Treatments currently being studied are still under investigation, meaning their effectiveness is not yet fully understood, and their potential side effects are still being carefully monitored. Participating can also require a time commitment, including frequent visits and follow-ups. And additionally, while many trials cover treatments and tests, out-of-pocket costs, like travel, may not always be reimbursed. Understanding these benefits and risk is key to making an informed decision about joining a clinical trial. Clinical trials are designed with patient safety as the top priority. So they follow strict protocols. They're closely monitored and receive oversight from ethics committees and regulatory bodies like the FDA to protect participants. Patients also have rights. These include receiving informed consent to fully understand the trial, having your personal health information protected, and being able to withdraw at any time without affecting your regular medical care. This focus on safety and rights is what allows clinical trials to advance treatments while protecting you. Next, we'll explore a little about the informed consent process, including how you can participate in it, understand its importance, and make well-informed decisions. The informed consent is an essential part of joining a clinical trial. It ensures that you understand the trial's purpose, procedures, risks, and potential benefits before agreeing to participate. Importantly, participation is voluntary, and you can withdraw at any time without consequence. This process includes detailed explanations, the opportunity to ask questions, and time to carefully consider whether the trial is the right choice for you. It also is important to discuss how privacy is protected and what happens if health circumstances change during the study. Before deciding, you should ask questions about the trial's purpose, risk, procedures, and cost, such as whether expenses for travel, lodging, or medical care are covered. You should also confirm whether you can continue seeing your regular doctor during the trial. And lastly, if you're discussing a randomized clinical trial with your provider, it's important to ask how your treatment plan will work. Randomized means that participants are placed in different groups by chance, similar to flipping a coin. One group might receive the study drug, while another might receive the comparator, such as a placebo or a standard treatment. You should also ask how this process works, what group you might be in, and whether you'll know which treatment you're receiving during the clinical trial. This process helps ensure the results are unbiased and based on science, not just choice. So let's walk through what to expect during a trial, starting with the process from beginning to end. Clinical trials start with a screening phase, and this is to determine eligibility based on your health, diagnosis, and other criteria. Once enrolled, participants sign informed consent and move into the treatment phase where you receive the investigational therapy and attend regular visits. After treatment ends, there's a follow-up phase to monitor long-term effects, safety, and overall health. Once all that data is collected, researchers conduct a data analysis to assess the safety and effectiveness of the treatment. If the results are promising, they may be submitted to the FDA for approval, moving the therapy one step closer to becoming widely available. Throughout the trial, you may undergo procedures and tests like blood work, physical exams, imaging, bone marrow biopsies, and surveys to track progress and side effects. This process is designed to ensure both safety, patient safety, and reliable data to advance future treatments. Now that we've reviewed some of the considerations of an MPN clinical trial, how to find one, and what to expect during the entire process from beginning to end, we'll discuss some of the ways that you can stay involved. So staying engaged during an MPN clinical trial helps ensure the best experience and most accurate results. First, it's important to communicate regularly with your research team. Ask questions, share updates about how you're feeling, and don't hesitate to bring up concerns. Be sure to attend all follow-up visits as scheduled. These appointments allow the team to monitor your health, track side effects, and assess how the treatment is working. Keeping a journal or diary is another great way to document symptoms or changes that you notice. This can provide valuable insights for the research team, including tracking your treatment symptoms and ensuring adherence to the treatment schedule. You might also consider joining support groups for MPN clinical trial participants. Connecting with others going through similar experiences can provide emotional support and some helpful tips. And take the time to learn about MPNs and the treatment being tested. Understanding the science behind the trial can help you feel more informed and more empowered. Lastly, it's essential to follow instructions carefully. Whether it's taking medications, following dietary guidelines, or keeping activity restrictions. Don't forget to provide feedback about your experience to help improve future MPN trials. These steps not only enhance your experience, but also contribute to advancing treatment for MPNs. So clinical trials are essential for finding better treatments for MPN patients, but there are still challenges and gaps that need to be addressed. So starting from the left and going to the right of the slide. One of the biggest challenges is limited enrollment because MPNs are rare. It's hard to recruit enough patients for studies. Another issue is a lack of biomarkers, tests that can predict how patients respond to treatments or track disease progression. We also need to learn more about the biology of MPNs to develop more targeted therapies. There are some key gaps that limit trial effectiveness. First, we need to enhance our understanding of how individual patients respond to treatments. Personalized insights can help us better tailor therapies to improve outcomes for each patient. We also need studies to optimize treatments, figuring out the best way to sequence or combine therapies. Trials should also focus on better measures of survival, quality of life, and symptoms to reflect what matters most to you. Additionally, long-term data is lacking because of follow-up periods are often too short to evaluate lasting effects and safety. Finally, diversity is another concern. Many trials don't reflect the broader population, which can limit how widely the results apply. Collaboration between researchers, doctors, and patients is key to improving trials and patient engagement. Staying informed and considering participation can help move research forward and expand treatment options for the MPN community. So next, we'll hear directly from a patient who has participated in a clinical trial. She will share her experience, insights, and advice for others considering this option. It is my pleasure to introduce someone who brings a unique and inspiring perspective to our discussion. As Sarah mentioned, Andrea Spica is a valued member of the MPN Research Foundation's Patient Impact Council and a true advocate for patient-centered research. Her personal journey has given her extraordinary insights into the world of MPNs. So with that, Andrea, thank you so much for joining us today to share your experience. To start, could you please introduce yourself and share a bit about your journey from being diagnosed with ET to its progression into MF?
Absolutely. Thank you, Christina. Hello to everyone out there. I hope sharing my journey can help you with your journey and what you can expect if you decide to join a clinical trial. To go back 26 years, I was diagnosed by mistake by my GP who ran standard blood tests, and she noticed that my platelets had gone up quite a bit. She didn't like it. She saw the trend and suggested I go to a hematologist oncologist, which I did. And I was diagnosed with ET, essential thrombocythemia. I felt fine with no symptoms. I was managed with a drug called anagrelide, which worked for me. I tried hydroxyurea, a couple of other things, and they didn't work for me. So for 10 years, I felt great. I did everything I wanted to do. I'm active. And then all of a sudden, well, maybe not all of a sudden, seemed all of a sudden, I was getting very fatigued. And I told my doctor about that. And he said, well, you could be experiencing a progression of the disease while you need a bone marrow biopsy, which I can do. He said, but I think you should go to a center of excellence that specializes in MPNs. And in my case, I went to MD Anderson. He said, because they're going to do all the tests there. He did not mention clinical trials at that point. 26 years ago or so, there were no approved treatments, very little understanding of MPNs. I would bring articles into my hematologist and we would read them together and then he would explain to me what they meant. That's how sort of, if I could say, primitive it was at that point. Well, when I went to MD Anderson, everything changed. I did learn about clinical trials. Dr. Verstovsek, who was my main doctor at that point, told me about them, suggested I should try them. And I thought I had nothing to lose. I had read that the disease progressed, 5 to 7 year lifespan at that point. And I really wanted to do everything I could do to save my life and extend my life with a good quality of life as long as I possibly could. So that started my journey, Christina.
Thank you so much for sharing all those details. So I would like to hear a little bit more about how you considered a clinical trial. So what were your initial thoughts and concerns when clinical trials were first mentioned as an option?
Well, I had never heard of a clinical trial at that point. I didn't know what it was. So certainly I was concerned about, will I be safe? Will I get sicker? Will I have more symptoms? What are the risks? And my daily life, I was working at the time. Would I be able to continue working? I like to travel, but would that be curtailed? But importantly, I also, and I think Christina mentioned this before, I had to look at travel frequency and the cost of it. If I had to go to MD Anderson, but I had to go once a week, it wasn't going to be viable for me. And also what the side effects were. I was very concerned about my quality of life. I didn't want it to decrease, even though I wanted to help with clinical trials. So the decision process was very difficult in the beginning. I wanted to know what phase I would be in because as I said, I didn't know much about them, but I really educated myself. I read a lot. I asked a lot of questions. I'd go in with information. I wrote down concerns. I asked friends and family what they thought, and then I would go in to ask for explanations. So I knew exactly what I was doing. I wanted to get new treatments for myself, of course. I wanted to feel better, but I also thought, let me pay it forward and maybe help others along the process. I kept a very open mind, or else at least I tried to, because I had already had 7 different drugs, including 3 trials. The first trial did not work. It was a Lilly trial. I had bad response to it. My care team stopped it immediately. The second one was another different drug trial, and that didn't work. Then I had read about, I don't know where, somewhere I read about this drug called CYT 387. And I asked my doctor about it. He said, oh, yes, I've heard about it, but we don't have it here at MD Anderson. Let me see if I can get it. Because in my case, it would reduce the transfusion dependency and the fatigue, increase my hemoglobin, or that's what the article said. So he said, it'll take about 6 months. 6 months came and went. He called me, he said, I have the drug, and I tried it. Well, at that point, I was probably having transfusions every 3 weeks, and they were increasing, or the frequency was decreasing, if you will. And I started CYT 387 and it worked. My hemoglobin numbers went up, my transfusion dependency decreased, and I was doing great. Then all of a sudden, I find out that CYT 387 was bought by another drug company. So of course that alarmed me in a bit, because this drug that had been working, what's going to happen with it? It turned out to be momelotinib, and they only tweaked the drug just a little bit. Dr. Verstovsek carried me through the process, and momelotinib lasted for me for 6 years until I went for a bone marrow transplant. I hope that helps, Christine.
No, it does. It's been a long journey, but you shared some, great things to ask and to consider to the audience. So, let's dive a little deeper into that. And can you share like what your experience was like during the trial, and what surprised you most about the process?
Well, I felt incredibly supported and monitored. I found out more about my health than I think I ever would have, because they look at everything. They look at your total blood work, everything. And so I knew that if anything else cropped up, I would be aware of it. I felt great about that. Certainly, as I described, my symptoms abated. Besides the first 2 trials, I saw great improvements in my health. And I really was so surprised at the level of care and follow up throughout the trial. The trials are usually very structured, so I knew that I had to do certain things at certain times. For example, my first trial, I had a very strict eating schedule. I could only eat at certain times. I had to not eat during a time, and then I had to eat during another time. It was I had to have a calendar to know when I could eat and when I couldn't. But that was the first one. When as I say, nothing was approved, no therapies. They were strictly testing things on me. One of my trials, the only, what can I say, animal before me was dogs. I was the second person in the trial. So that was part of my experience. When the trials didn't work, I was so surprised to know that they immediately heard me. There was a special clinical nurse that was my particular nurse, so I could always get information from her. I didn't have to worry about making an appointment with the doctor or anything else like that. She knew what I was going through. She knew the drug inside and out. She constantly communicated with the drug company. And if anything changed with my condition, it was promptly modified, drug was changed, the actual dosage was changed, or it was terminated based on my feedback. So I was pleasantly surprised at how easy the trial process was. Whether it worked or it didn't work, they work so closely with you that you always feel like you're the center of the universe.
That's great. You really had an expert team on your side.
I did.
So, what insights can you share with other MPN patients who might be thinking about joining a clinical trial, including if their healthcare team has not mentioned this option?
Sure. Well, I really, based on my experience and other people who I've gotten to know who've gone through clinical trials, I so encourage people out there, you all with MPNs or caregivers who know people with MPNs, to talk to your local doctor about a trial. They might look at you like you're cross-eyed, but start with them. If that doesn't work, or they don't know of any, or they're not cooperative with you, then you need to ask them where an MPN specialty center is. And you can contact that center directly, or they can contact it for you. It might not be close to your house, that then there are transportation costs, but usually the doctor can administer the trial in a lot of the cases, so you don't have to travel. Asking questions is super important. Keep a diary, ask someone to come with you, because when you're, I don't know about you, but most people, when they're in a doctor appointment, you're thinking what they're saying and questions to ask, so you miss a lot. If you have someone with you, they can take notes and they can remind you of questions that you wanted to ask or something like that. Stay informed. Learn about your diagnosis and treatment options. Read a lot of information on the web. I know doctors don't like us to look at the web, but at least it educates us. We can pronounce the words and we can come up with questions to ask the doctor. Not tell them what to do, but it's just great to have that knowledge and be open. I was so lucky to be chosen to work on the MPN Council, MPNRF Council. The research folks are just the greatest, and we look at new therapies and help research, and it's invaluable. So if you can, get involved, whether it be with one of the organizations around MPNs or with a local group, whichever way you can, if you can. A lot of times children or pets or jobs get in the way, but do what you can do, and we all appreciate it. Thank you, Sarah.
Those are really great insights. So my last question to you is, you shared a lot of information, a lot about your journey. Is there anything else you'd like to share that you think is important for patients to know?
Well, let's see. Each trial is literally a trial. If it does not work for you, you can stop participating or ask if there's another possibility. It may take more than one trial to find the one that works for you, and everyone is different, as you know. You need to be your own health advocate. If standard treatments aren't effective, please don't lose hope. Ask about clinical trials and whether they address and can help your specific needs. Let's see, there might be short-term reactions that resolve when the trial is stopped or adjusted. That happened to me. It worked great. I spoke to my doctor. I asked questions. What can I expect? How did others react? Not that that would be a barometer, but at least you have an idea. What phase of the trial? As I mentioned before, dogs tried it before I did in that particular trial, phase of that trial. But then I went through all the trials. The other thing is to ask, if the trial ends and is successful for you, will your drug still be covered? Will you still be able to get it for free, or will the drug company work with you? Review the consent form. Ask other people who might be knowledgeable on legalese to check the consent form, see if they see anything that is a red flag for you. And again, consider other opportunities to be involved, like I spoke about before, to review clinical trials or just get involved in any way you possibly can. And please try a trial. It was great for me. Saved my life in a lot of ways.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us today. Your perspective is really impactful and truly appreciated by everyone here.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Sure. Thank you.
So as we wrap up, let's talk about how you can take action to support clinical trials and research. And I know we're almost at time, so I'll try to run through this quickly. So I'd like to leave you with a few important reminders. Clinical trials are essential to developing new treatments and improving care for MPNs. They provide access to innovative therapies and play a key role in advancing research. While we've talked about challenges such as patient recruitment and gaps in data, there's also momentum and progress happening. From targeted therapies to combination treatments, research is pushing us closer to better outcomes. For patients, as Andrea highlighted, it's important to stay informed and talk to your healthcare team about whether a clinical trial may be right for you. Asking questions and understanding your options can help you feel confident about your decisions. Many patients find strength in sharing their experiences, whether it's to encourage others to explore clinical trials or to advocate for more research funding and awareness. You are part of the progress. Your participation and support make a real impact in improving treatments and advancing MPN research. By participating in a trial or getting involved any other ways, you're not only potentially helping yourself, but also contributing to research that benefits the entire MPN community. Your involvement helps us learn more about the disease and improve treatments for everyone affected by MPNs. It's a really powerful way to make a difference. Participating in a trial is just one way to make an impact. Just as Andrea mentioned, she is involved in, several other ways, but you can get involved beyond participation by helping researchers improve trial design and communication. For example, reviewing protocols to ensure they are patient-friendly or providing input on consent forms and materials to make them clear and easy to understand. You can also play a role in shaping how results are shared by helping develop summaries that are accessible to the broader community. Additionally, your feedback and experiences can highlight unmet needs, influencing how research priorities are set. And finally, we're here to help you navigate clinical trials, whether it's understanding eligibility, next steps, or even figuring out if a study is right for you. So with that, I don't think we'll have time for live questions, but I do want to thank you all so much for joining today's session. I hope this presentation has given you a better understanding of how clinical trials work, what to expect if you choose to participate, and the exciting developments happening with novel treatments for MPNs. Clinical trials are essential for advancing treatments and improving care, and your interest in learning about them is already an important step toward making a difference. Whether you're considering participating, advocating for research, or helping shape future studies, your involvement matters. We encourage you to ask questions, explore resources, and lean on support systems, including our team, as you navigate this process. Together, we can continue driving progress and improving outcomes for MPN patients. Thank you again for your time, your interest, and your dedication to advancing research. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, need additional information, or are interested in influencing future studies. We look forward to staying connected and supporting you in your journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Christina and Andrea. We really appreciate you sharing this information with our MPN Pathways participants today. You were phenomenal.
It's
With
been a pleasure.
Yeah, we'll close today. Please, again, like Christina said, reach out with any questions. We appreciate you guys being involved in this program and for your interest in research. So have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk soon.
Have a great evening, everyone. Take care.